I am a grateful believer in Jesus, celebrating recovery from alcohol and lust, still struggling with codependency and other issues. My name is Kelly. And you should know this is my first time really just reading it instead of looking for notes. If it goes well, it's all God. Isaiah 40:31 says, I hope in the Lord, and he will renew my strength. I will soar on wings like eagles. I will run and not grow weary. I will walk and not be faint. My parents met in France when they were both in the army, and they married shortly after they were both discharged. My parents were both Christians in the same denomination when I was born in Marin, California. I am a middle child with an older brother and a younger sister. About a year after I was born, my parents moved the family from Petaluma, California, to a pink house on a street corner in Napa, California. To the casual onlooker, my family looked normal, but like most families, we had our issues. The devil doesn't always use one big explosion to blow up our lives. He often uses little explosions over time in different parts of our lives, hoping that we will ultimately implode in on ourselves. That was certainly true for me. My story is about how the enemy tried to ruin, but instead God intervened and saved me, even though at the time I didn't really care about myself. 1 John 4:4 says, Little children, you are of God and have defeated and overcome, because he who lives in me is greater than he who is in the world. Ephesians 2:10 says, For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. In the early years as a child, ages 2 to 7 approximately, I have many good memories. I had a best friend, I roller skated, walked the mile to school daily, and spent a lot of time with extended family on the weekends. While growing up, our family moved around a lot, 7 times that I remember, and we kids had to change schools even more than 7 times throughout the years. That was difficult. I learned shame about my weight early on. I was 4 when I went to my best friend's birthday party, and the adult kept asking me if I would like more cake. Has any 4-year-old ever said no to cake? When my mom picked me up, the adult said that I had had 4 pieces of cake without mentioning that she had given them to me. My mom yelled at me all the way home, and then there was a spanking and I went to bed. What hurt the most was the shame and learning that adults lie. That was when I knew I was fat. Another time, my mom took a picture of me in my bikini in the backyard. The next summer, I made sure I was thin for that bikini and my swim lessons. I have always struggled with my weight, but no matter how much I lost, I was always taller and bigger than my peers and my cousins. When I was about 10 years old, I remember being shamed about weighing more than my younger sister and cousin. In my desperation to escape the situation, I ran through a sliding glass door, which is why I have scars on my leg. I was about 2 years old when my mom was pregnant with my younger sister. During pregnancy, there were RH issues that were discovered. That means that my mom's blood and my sister's blood were different. It was life-threatening to my mom and my unborn sister. A church leader advised my mom that she should have an abortion. My mom took a different path, which included having her blood tested weekly. My mom chose to trust God with this situation. And some of you have met my little sister. It was during this time that my mom started searching for a different church that believed in the same God that she did. Little old lady came to our door one day. She was selling Bible books. We couldn't afford the books, so the little old lady gave my mom Bible studies instead. We started attending church with this lady. My dad stuck with the same church, and it was difficult having my parents each having different churches. I went to church with each of them just to their church, so Saturday night and Saturday morning. One of the most traumatic things that happened during our time in Napa was when some high school boys were talking about raping myself and my best friend while we were out walking. We were fortunate to be able to run away and get help. We told on the boys to some adults. The adults took us to the classroom window and asked us to point out the boys that were the culprits. I was so overwhelmed that I blanked out about it, and still my memory is foggy. My friend picked out the boys that were involved, and they were caught. Eventually, the family moved to Redlands, California. My dad wanted the family to be more solid, so he chose to join the church that my mom went to. In Redlands, I was put in private school. It was good and bad. The school had some different kinds of food that were new to me. But the school also had a lot of cliques, and that made it hard making friends. After 2 years in Redlands, my family moved again. This time it was just above Spokane, Washington. It was a 20-acre piece of property that we could barely afford. At first we attended public school nearby, and then were transferred into private school again in Spokane. Always having to make new friends was hard. Our time in Spokane was very physically demanding. My dad had no sense of humor and made sure we were always busy with work. We chopped and stacked 13-plus cordwood each summer, and my dad made us do odd chores like picking up pine cones on 5 of the acres, which was just forest. Anyways, it was a lot of work, and my dad said that we had to have a clean forest floor, so it was. We had a barn, but no animals. Nonetheless, Dad demanded that we keep the barn nice and neat. We pulled weeds out of the areas where the animals would have run if we'd had animals. And in the winter, every Sunday, we shoveled the road into our place extra wide. Sadly, the only times we had any fun during those years were times when my dad was away working or visiting one of his friends. Dad stopped attending my mom's church and went back to drinking alcohol. The dinner table was always a tense place. My mom would move us kids around the table so that no one sat by my dad for his full attention too many days at a time. He would focus on you to correct and make fun of you. One time I was threatened with having my knuckles cracked with the side of his knife. I learned to keep my opinions to myself. I got to a point that I ate so fast to get away that my mom started making me chew each bite 100 times. There's not much after 30, just saying. Since my mom was last to sit at the table because my siblings and I just wanted to get away, and she did eat slow. All during this time, I was learning bad eating habits and to be codependent. I was being groomed for the family caretaker role. Part of the enemy's explosions that were hitting me for codependency were that my parents expected me to clean up after my sister. I was so happy to get my own room when we moved to Washington, but I was still responsible. My sister did not have to do a lot of chores because of her age and being youngest. My mom always had me house cleaning, or I had chores outside. I remember one year that we didn't have a lawnmower, and at the end of the summer, my brother and I had to use scythes to chop the lawn down so it could be mowed by a borrowed lawnmower. My dad often wanted my brother to work by his side in those days. Tony, my brother, had no interest as he was getting bullied by my dad on a regular basis. I filled in, only to know I was second best. When Tony was 13, he returned the bullying around on my dad and threw my dad up against a wall. After that, my dad only bullied with words. His words are still in my head. I daily battle with them with the Word of God. I know from His Word that I am greatly loved and God's masterpiece. My dad had a habit of pointing out publicly what he believed I was doing wrong, or that he wished it was my brother working with him. Then he would refer to sayings that his mom had used with him, like use your head for something other than a hat rack, or when your opinion was not valued, he would say, you're nothing but a pissy little kid, not dry behind the ears yet. If I was talking too much, he would ask me, who put a nickel in you, and don't you ever shut up? Well, I did shut up, and he would find other things to say to me. When my siblings and I were teenagers, my dad expected me to finance my older brother's video gaming with my quarters. My dad felt that boys had more needs than girls. Let's just say that didn't go well. There was no more money for Tony. Each year we were in Washington, my parents tried to sell the place. We were so over our heads financially. Finally, the 5th year, God worked a miracle, and it happened. The place sold. The miracle was that no banks were loaning monies, and this single woman at the last moment came in with the proper loan money and bought our place. In a week, what we could not do in 5 years, God did. Another thing that God had done in those 5 years was to give me a big sister who would take me camping and all kinds of places. She taught me how to change a tire at 16 and so much more about life. She gave me the attention I was dying for. She gave me a writing outlet as well as part of those years because she was away at college. I would be a junior bridesmaid at her wedding. I spent the summer between 10th and 11th with my big sister and her husband, and then again after I graduated high school. We are still close to this day. She, for me, was a blessing from God that I badly needed to survive the narcissism, lack of emotional connection, and anger that I found at home. She was a constant in all the school changes and moves, and she still is. God sent her to help me survive my life at home. After the sale of the property, we were going to move into the city of Spokane, but a buddy of my dad said that we should come to Oregon, and that's how we ended up in Roseburg. Moving to Roseburg at age 15, I knew I had to stop shutting down. I made myself be social in the 9th grade and had some cool friends. But being in public school and having conservative Christian parents made things challenging for me. My parents wouldn't let me play on any of the after-school sports teams I wanted to play so bad. So I did every kind of PE instead. I swam at a pool regularly, and I walked and I biked everywhere. I was used to eating more in Washington because we worked so hard. So eating the same amount without working off the calories caused me to start gaining more weight. And I just didn't know what to do. I just kept moving. My sister at 16 almost died of a disease that was meant for old people. She made it through that to almost die in the hospital at 21 of spinal meningitis and was told she would not live past 28. She is much past that because God interceded. My brother, who dropped out of high school, finished in a special school, and then he was kicked out by my dad because my brother knew what my dad was doing in his free time and didn't want him telling my mom. I took over his room, though I felt guilt-laden about it. At some point, my dad started having an affair with another woman, which eventually led to my parents' divorce when I was 18. My dad married the woman he'd been having an affair with. My dad told me that I needed to take care of my mom now that he was remarried. He shouldn't have said that. It left a lasting impression in my mind all these years. He married someone with 3 kids our same ages, and it felt like he replaced us. God took care of my mom after the divorce. I watched God step in and provide what my father no longer did. He even supplied a car for free from a friend of my mom's. My brother would go on to have three beautiful daughters, Shauna, Tanya, and Beth. And when Tanya grew up, she would have Emily, my great niece. My brother ended up losing his legs both below the knee. And a couple of days before his 53rd birthday, he died in a hospital surrounded by his family. I still miss him, and it has been almost 5 years. Actually, come the 18th, it's 5 years. My mom, sister, and I moved to a place that we could afford, and Mom went to work, and I helped financially as I was able. I was 18 when I stopped going to church. There were mean girls there, and it was just another place that I did not fit in. After high school, I would go on to Umpqua Community College and get a 2-year journalism degree, and then off to Oregon State University, where I switched my major to sociology and caught back up to a 3rd-year level. But in the process, I turned 21 and gave myself permission to drink. I could drink as much as I wanted and still wake up feeling great. I wasn't throwing up or having bed spins either. But what I did not understand was that it was feeding my sugar addiction, and that is still with me to this day. I also became a great workaholic. Always family or someone needed help, and my codependent self was always there, except when I was hiding at work. I started drinking regularly with coworkers and a longtime friend of mine. It is only because of God that I never got into the drug scene. It was a part of my friend's lifestyle because, you see, I was always looking for a way to die. I wasn't living the life I wanted to. I never thought I'd live past 21, and only recently have I understood that I was running from codependence. I remember distinctly at 9, 14, 22, and 36, and a few other times of wanting to commit suicide. When I had a chance to go to Hawaii for the first time, I felt the pull to jump from my hotel room's high balcony. In more recent years, a friend suggested I talk to my doctor, and I'm now on meds. More little explosions ready to take me down. I don't know that suicide would have been in my thoughts except when I was 4, my uncle committed suicide. I remember it as if it was yesterday. Then when I was in my 30s, my younger cousin at 21 committed suicide. I didn't want to do that to my family, but the devil kept throwing it back at me. I would stop drinking off and on through my 20s and 30s, but did not really give it up till a couple of years ago when I came back to this CR. By 1995, God had led me back to church. In the meantime, I had a job at a nursing home as a custodian along with a fast food job. When it was time to go to church, I'd just sleep. That was before I went back. I got free soda at work and drank it by the gallon, fast food. And then I came to Eugene and got another job doing custodial, but went on to become an activity director at the same nursing home. That is when I really realized that God was providing for me. Job and housing were set up quickly, and when I bought my things up from Roseburg in my little pickup truck, it was pouring rain. And even though I did not tarp the back, God saw that none of my stuff got wet. I'm still shocked today. In all of this, God sent me a little church lady. She sent a letter because we'd never met and said God wanted me to have Bible studies. A year later, August 1995, that's when I was rebaptized. While I was an activity director, I was burning the candle at both ends. I had gained weight to 360 pounds. I felt like I couldn't fit through doors. I was eating fast food and working. Well, except when I was drinking with friends. I started walking and lost 80 pounds, and then I thought I should change jobs and finish my college education. I thought I should... Typo. So that is how 2004 I landed a job as a custodian in an educational setting. I did do some college classes while I worked at night, but my current work schedule is so intense that I had to stop classes, although I am only 45 credits from graduation with a BS. I became the best custodian I could be. I went from nights to days and then nights again and became the custodial coordinator. Then days again when I was promoted to custodial service manager, which is where I continue to work to this day. My codependence led me to doing more than my fair share and working all kinds of hours. My health, my eating, and what I was spending my money on were all affected. I had no time for friends or taking care of myself, and I was feeling very low and suicidal. One day, as I ate my peanut butter and jelly sandwich on an outside bench of work, I was telling God I just couldn't do life anymore. I was just done, unless God had an answer. So just then, God sent a piece of paper blowing by me. It was an advertisement for the Crossfire Celebrate Recovery. I picked it up, being a custodian and all. That was October 2010, and I knew I had to go because God had answered. Everybody was so friendly, and the women just surrounded me. Many a night I would just cry. They would lay hands on me and pray at times. I went through my first step study and learned about grace and mercy. I met my current best friend, Jenny, who was also an answer to my prayer. Funny, I thought I was cured of codependency after the first step study. Little did I know I was in denial. I had just begun to peel the onion. My sisters in Christ from that first CR still get together, but they have mostly stopped going to CR, and I would pick it up occasionally on Tuesday nights. But then I heard this CR was being formed. I wanted in, but by the time we were at step 4, I was so far into my workaholism and codependency that I didn't feel like I could make time for recovery. I disappeared into my life. I told myself that I still had my sisters from Crossfire. Finally, I just got tired of life and that I was living and came back home to this CR. I have not looked back since. God has given me a forever family in all of you that I will never forget. To be loved for being myself is such a gift. This past year, when I was in step study again, I learned what love was meant to be, that I am greatly loved and not for anything I could ever do. Not just that, but I was able to give love freely and be loved. So many walls came down. And now I am back in step study as a co-leader, thinking God will finally get to work on my eating, spending, and codependency. It is such a journey. I am grateful for all of it. I have learned that I will be able to stop crying when I start to release addiction and trauma. I have learned that when I feel I am alone, that not only is God looking out for me and right by my side, but also there is a whole group of people who want to come by my side and do recovery with me. For the newcomer, this may sound strange, but it is true for all who walk through the door and work the steps while reaching out, even for the introvert like me. One of the best decisions I have made is joining the Springfield Celebrate recovery team. I love being a part of the changes in other people's lives, while my own life is changing as well. Being a sponsor to 3 ladies was life-changing. They tell me I have helped them, but I feel so blessed in being a part of their recovery process. My own sponsor, Candace, meets with me weekly and keeps me on the straight and narrow. She celebrates my victories and listens to my troubles with helpful suggestions. The leadership team is so bonded together. We learn, process and do fun things like going on the rapids or going to the Celebrate Recovery Summit each year. When I first discovered Celebrate Recovery, I saw and felt like it was what church was supposed to be. I have found that to be true here as well. My favorite step changes at different times, but I have a special place in my heart for step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, all because of the verse from Philippians 2:13. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. I knew I was powerless. I knew that somehow God could give me victory, but the nuts and bolts of this verse still escaped my understanding till the last couple of years. God is working in us. It is not us in any shape or form. Only he has the victory, and he wants us to have it. I will leave you all with this one last thought. Because of the alcohol, weird work schedule, and bad diet, I sometimes have trouble figuring life out, thinking straight, or even staying present in the moment. So for me, there are lots of verses that I love. Psalms 23, Isaiah 43, 1-3, but it is Micah 6:8 that centers me. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. I think it is God's KIS method. Keep it simple. Thank you for listening, and don't leave before the miracle happens.